Welcome back to Fluent Flow, the English podcast. You've learned the grammar, you've memorized the vocabulary, but when you're in a real conversation, something still feels off. You feel a little hesitant, a little unnatural, and not quite fluent. The good news is, you're probably just making a few common mistakes that are actually pretty easy to fix. In today's episode of Fluent Flow, I'm going to show you exactly what those mistakes are and how to fix them so you can start speaking English with the confidence and fluency you've been working for. We're not just talking about textbook errors. We're talking about those subtle habits that separate language learners from truly natural speakers. We're going to get your speaking to feel less like a test and more like a real, flowing conversation. And this isn't about being perfect. In fact, we'll talk about why trying to be perfect is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. This is about connection. It's about finally feeling comfortable and confident when you speak. So if you're ready to close that gap between the English in your head and the English that comes out of your mouth, let's get into it. The first and probably the biggest mistake holding learners back is translating directly from your native language in your head. I see this all the time. You have a thought in your first language, you mentally translate it word for word into English, and then you try to speak the sentence that comes out. On the surface, it seems to make sense, but in reality, it kills your fluency for two huge reasons. First, it's incredibly slow. Your brain is doing double the work. It's trying to have a thought and do a complex mental translation at the same time. This is why you get those long, awkward pauses where you're scrambling to find the right word. The conversation moves on while you're still stuck, which just crushes your confidence. Second, and this is the big one, it makes your English sound unnatural. Every language has its own unique rhythm and sentence structure. When you translate directly, you're forcing your native language's grammar onto English, and it just doesn't fit right. This leads to common mistakes that instantly signal you're a learner. For example, in many languages you'd say, I have 30 years, but a direct translation gives you, I have 30 years, when a native speaker would always say, I am 30 years old. Another classic is saying, I lost the bus, when you mean you were late. A native speaker would say, I missed the bus. If you say you lost the bus, it sounds like the bus itself has disappeared. So what's the fix? You have to start thinking in English. I know, that sounds like a massive jump, but it's a habit you can build slowly. Start small. Narrate your daily tasks in your head in simple English. As you wake up, think, okay, I'm getting out of bed. I'm walking to the kitchen. I'm going to make coffee. It doesn't have to be poetry. The goal is to build a direct link in your brain between a thought and the English words for it without your native language getting in the middle. By doing this, you're not just memorizing words, you're learning how sentences feel and flow, which is the key to real fluency. The next mistake that makes your English sound a little basic is overusing the word very. Think about it. I was very tired. The movie was very good. It's very cold. While it's not wrong, using very all the time is a sign that your active vocabulary is a bit limited. It's a crutch, and it makes your speaking sound repetitive.
To sound more expressive and fluent, you need to swap those weak very plus adjective pairs for stronger, more precise words. This one small change can make a huge difference. Instead of very tired, you could say exhausted. Instead of very good, what about fantastic, incredible, or superb? Instead of very big, try enormous, huge, or gigantic. This isn't about showing off with fancy words. It's about being more specific and interesting. Strong vocabulary paints a clearer picture for your listener. It's the difference between saying, the party was very fun, and the party was a blast. The second one has more energy and sounds way more natural. The fix here is to actively build your vocabulary. When you learn a new adjective, don't just learn the one word. Look up its synonyms. When you're listening to English, pay attention to the powerful words native speakers use and jot them down. Make a list of your personal very phrases. Do you always say very important? Try learning crucial, essential, or vital. By consciously trying to use these stronger words in your daily speech, you'll break that very habit and start sounding much more articulate. This next one isn't about grammar or vocabulary. It's about your mindset. It's the belief that you have to speak perfectly with zero mistakes every single time. This need for perfection can completely paralyze you. Before you even open your mouth, your mind is racing with anxiety. Is my grammar right? What if I use the wrong word? Do I sound stupid? This fear of making mistakes is one of the biggest roadblocks to fluency. The truth is, fluency is about communication, not perfection. The goal is to get your message across. Native speakers make mistakes all the time. We mess up grammar, stumble over our words, and forget what we were saying mid-sentence. It's a normal part of talking. If you wait until you're perfect to speak, you'll never speak. Another symptom of this is constantly correcting yourself. Imagine you say, "Yesterday, I go to the store." Oh, sorry, I went to the store. It's great that you know the rule, but stopping the flow of the conversation to fix a small error makes things awkward. It shows the other person you're more focused on rules than on the conversation itself. Most of the time, a small mistake doesn't stop them from understanding you. The solution is to give yourself permission to be imperfect. See mistakes not as failures, but as proof that you're trying and learning. The more you speak, the more comfortable you'll get, and the grammar will get better on its own. Shift your focus. Instead of asking yourself, "Am I saying this perfectly?" Ask, "Is the other person understanding me?" When you prioritize connection over correction, the pressure just melts away. You relax, you speak more smoothly, and funnily enough, you end up making fewer mistakes because you're not overthinking every word. Are you guilty of any of these so far? The textbook trap, the very virus, or perfection paralysis? Let me know in the comments which one hits home for you. I read every single one. A really common mistake that makes you sound unnatural is using textbook English in a casual, everyday conversation. You've spent years learning formal rules from books, which is a great foundation. But real conversation is a different game. It's faster, more informal, and has its own rhythm.
A classic example is greetings. A textbook might teach you to say, "How do you do?" If you say this to a new friend at a cafe, they'll probably be a little confused. It's super formal and pretty old-fashioned. A native speaker would just say, "How's it going? What's up?" Or a simple, "Hey, how are you?" Another dead giveaway is not using contractions. In writing, you learn to say, "I will not," or "they are." But when we talk, native speakers almost always use contractions. "I won't," "there." Saying the full words can make you sound a bit robotic, or like you're trying too hard. To sound more natural, you absolutely want to use contractions, and even informal ones like gonna and wanna. This also applies to vocabulary. You might learn the formal word purchase, but in a normal conversation, we almost always just say bye. You might learn, "It is raining heavily," but a native speaker would probably say, "It's pouring outside." To fix this, you have to tune your ear to authentic English. Watch movies, TV shows, and YouTube videos. Pay attention to the slang, the idioms, and how people actually talk to each other. Notice how they greet each other, tell stories, and agree or disagree. The trick is to learn English in chunks and phrases, not just single words. When you learn "how's it going" as one whole piece, you don't have to think about it. You just know it's the right thing to say. This is how you go from sounding like you're reading a script to sounding like you're just talking. This final mistake is all about the back and forth of a good chat, forgetting to be an active participant. A conversation is a two-way street. It's not just about you talking. It's about engaging with the other person. A huge mistake learners make is they answer questions but never ask any back. This can make you seem uninterested or really shy, and it puts all the work on the other person to keep the conversation from dying. For example, someone asks you, "How was your weekend?" You say, "It was good. I went to the park." And then silence. The conversation just stops. You answered the question, but you didn't pass the ball back. A much better response would be, "It was great, thanks. I went to the park. What about you? Did you do anything fun?" Asking good follow-up questions is a fluency superpower. It shows you're listening, it takes the pressure off you to talk all the time, and it gives you more chances to hear natural English. Don't just ask yes or no questions. Use open-ended questions with words like what, where, who, why, and how. If someone says they went to a concert, don't just say, "Oh, nice." Ask, "Oh, cool. Who did you go see?" Or, "What was the best song they played?" The solution here is just practice. Before you go into a conversation, think of a few general questions you can ask. And during the chat, make a real effort to end your turn with a question. This one habit will make your conversations longer, more interesting, and way less stressful. You'll be practicing your English and building better connections, which is the whole point of learning a language. All right, so let's quickly recap the 5 big mistakes that might be holding you back. Translating in your head, overusing weak words like very, being paralyzed by the fear of mistakes, using stiff textbook English, and being a passive conversation partner. Remember, fluency is a journey. And here on Fluent Flow, the English podcast, I want you to feel supported every step of the way. This week, just pick one of these mistakes to focus on, and I promise you'll start to notice the difference. If this episode was helpful, make sure you subscribe to Fluent Flow, the English podcast, for more tips and strategies to boost your confidence and fluency. And I'd love to hear from you. What's the #1 mistake you're going to work on this week? Share it in the comments below. I read every single one. Thanks for being here with me on Fluent Flow, and I'll see you in the next episode.